Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monique. If you are new here, kindly click on the red button below to subscribe. Today I'll be showing you how I made this easy maxi cycle dress with bishop sleeve. So let's get started. So I'm using a plain and pattern crepe fabric for these tutorials. This is 3 yards and this plain one is 1.5 yards. So this is the pattern paper I'll be using. This is the front and the back. This is the zipper line. This is the shoulder line where my measurement will start from. So the shoulder is 15 divided by 2 will give us 7.5. I'll add half an inch for seam allowance. Then from this shoulder width, I'll come down by 1 inch. Then I'll take the neck width. I'm using 4 inches for the neck width. Then for the neck depth, I'll be using 3.5 inches. So I'll just go ahead and connect it like so. So from the shoulder slope, I'll connect it to the neck width like so. So from this shoulder slope, I'll take the chest line and I'm using 8 inches. So every other measurement will start from this line. I'll take the waist. The waist is 17. I'm adding half an inch for seam allowance. That's 17.5 inches. After doing that, I'll place the shoulder measurement on the chest line, the 8 inches here. And I'll take a straight line. That's for the armhole. Then I'll get the midpoint of this line and I'll come in by 0.75 and I'll connect it like so. After doing this, I'll take the bust circumference, which is 38 divided by 4 gives us 9.5. I'm adding 1.5 inches for seam allowance. Now on the waistline, the waist is 31 divided by 4 will give us 7.5. I'm adding 1 inch for that and 1.5 inches for seam allowance. Then I'll go ahead and connect it this way. I forgot to take the shoulder to bust point, so I'll place it here. The shoulder to bust point is 11 inches. Now I'll take the bust span measurement. The bust span is 8 inches. 8 divided by 2 will give us 4 inches. I'm adding half an inch for seam allowance. So I'll come down by 1 inch here. Then I'll connect the straight line. Then I'll take half inch on both sides. I'll connect it like this. After doing this, I'll connect the armhole. So we're done drafting the front pattern, so I'll go straight to the back. I'll start taking the measurement from the zipper line. I'll take the shoulder width measurement, which is 8 inches. Then I'll take the neck width 4 inches and the neck depth 2 inches. Then I'll connect the neckline. Then I'll come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope and I'll connect it to the neck width like so. Now I'll take the shoulder to chest line. And I'm using 8 inches here, just like the front. So I'll take the shoulder to the back half length, and back half length is 16 inches. I'm adding half an inch for seam allowance. Then I'll connect the lines. So now I'll place the shoulder measurement on the chest line. I'll place the 8 inches here. Then I'll take a straight line. Now I'll place the bust circumference, which is 9.5. I'll add 1.5 inches for seam allowance. Now I'll get the midpoint of this armhole line, which is 4 inches. Then I'll come in by half an inch. And I'll take a slant line like so. I'll connect the armhole. Now on the chest line, I'll come down by 2 inches to get the bust span. The bust span is 8 inches divided by 2 will give us 4 inches. I'm adding 1 inch for seam allowance. And I'll place it the 5 inches on the waist also. Now I'll take a straight line. And I'll take half inch on both sides. I'll connect it like this. Then to tighten the back, to avoid zip bulge, I'll come in by 0.75 from the back half length. Then I'll connect it straight to this point like this, with a slant line. So the waist circumference is exactly what I have here with seam allowance. So I'll get the difference between the back and front. The back is 16 and the front is 17. So the difference is 1 inch and I'm placing it here. Then from the bust point, I'll go out by half an inch. Then I'll connect it to this half inch like this. After doing that, I'll just go ahead and cut it out. So I'll be closing this dart like this so that it will align with the front. But I won't be closing it on the pattern. I'll be stitching it on the fabric. So I'll just go ahead and notch this point so that I'll know where it is when I'm drafting it on the fabric. That is the side dart. Now I'll open the front pattern like this. to get the style I want in the front. Is remember, it's like a mono strap, so I'll come in by 1 inch from this armhole. Then on the waist here, I'll go up by 3 inches. Then I'll just connect it like this to meet this point. So I'll take like a broken line like this. Now I'll use my pattern master to connect it. So I'll be cutting through the line. So this is it. I'll be adding 1/2 inch on the sides here and on this other side. Now I've gone ahead to cut it on the fabric. I added 1/2 inch on at this point and also on the other side here. I also added 1/2 inch on the shoulder. So this is the fabric and this is the other fabric. It will be like this. I'll also cut out the back piece. I cut out 2. Now I'll be cutting out the lower part of the dress. So I'll be folding this fabric on bias like this. Then I'll get the waist circumference, waist divided by 4. The waist circumference is 31. 31 divided by 4 will give us 7.5. But I want it to be 8 inches because of the side seam. So I'm placing it here like this to get 8 inches. Just make sure you fix it in such a way you get your waist circumference. So I'll mark it up here. Then I'll still check it again to make sure it's 8 inches I have. So remember, it's on a fold. So when I open it up, I'll have 16 inches. So from the beginning of the bias, I'll measure where I marked. So I have 13 inches. So I'm going to take the 13 inches all around so that I'll have a cycle shape like this. So I'll shape it out. Then from this line, I'll get the full length. The full length is 45 inches, but I'll be removing 10 inches from it to make up for this plain pattern. So I'll be using 35 inches. I'll be adding 2 inches for seam allowance. That will be 37 inches. So I'll be taking 37 all round like this. I'll continue to mark it out like this while shifting the tape to get the 37 inches. Then I'll shape it out. So I'll go ahead and cut it out from the waist here. I'll cut this other part and the full length. So this is the front. I'll be cutting out 2 of this. One will be for the back. So I'll check the waist circumference. So I have about 17.5 inches here, which is fine because I'll be using it for the side seam allowance. So I'll use the front pattern to cut out the back, but I'll make sure the back is 1 inch longer. So I've gone ahead to trace this to cut out the back panel. So this will be the front and this will be the back. The back is a bit longer than the front. So I'll be dividing the back into 2. So I'll cut this side so that it will have 2 pieces for the back. So this is the front and the back, and on the full length I'll take the full length circumference all round. That is the front and the back circumference. And after taking it, I have for the front and the back I have about 110. So I'll times it into 2 to cut the plain pattern. I'll be cutting the plain pattern by 220. You can even cut it times 3 depending on the fabric you have, but I'll times it by 2. The length I'm working with is 10 inches and the width is 202. So these are the patterns I cut out. So now I'll be joining the top on this side. I'll place the good side on the good side, then I'll pin it up. So we'll have something like this when we sew it. So I'll go ahead and sew it and show you. So guys, I've joined the top. So this is the wrong side. I joined it by 1/2 inch. So this is the waist that I joined it also, and the side that I joined it by 1/2 inch. This is the other side. Then I did the same thing on the back. I joined the side darts for the back panel. Then I went ahead to cut out facing for the front. I added interfacing to it to give it weight. So I'll be sewing it by 1/4 inch. Then I did the same thing on the back. I cut out facing for the back and I added interfacing to it. So I'll be sewing it by 1/4 inch. So guys, I've gone ahead to join it. This is the neckline. I joined it by 1/4 inch. I did the same thing for the back. Now I'll be joining the down part of the skirt to the top. So I'll place the right side on the right side. And I'll pick it up like this and I'll sew it by 1/2 inch. So I'll go ahead and pin it up. So after doing that, I'll sew it. I'll do the same thing for the back. So remember on the back, I told you I was going to cut it into 2. So I'll join it on the waist and I'll show you when I'm done. So guys, we're done fixing the front panel and also the back panel. So I joined it from the full length and I stopped where I want the zip to be. So this is the zip I'll be using. So I measured from the waist and I stopped at 10 inches. So I stitched it from this 10 inches. That's the 2 panels. I stitched it from this 10 inches. So the zipper will start from here. That's the good side of the zipper. Will be on the good side of the dress. So I'm using 1 inch to fix the zipper. So I'll start sewing from this point. And I'll go in on this side I stitched. I'll go in on this part I stitched a little. It will be after the stitched part. That's where the zip will stop. Then I'll pin it up. So I've pinned it up. It will be like this. Then I'll turn it over to the other side of the back panel. So I'll place it here on the 1 inch. Right side facing right side. Then I'll sew it on this point here to the end and I'll show you when I'm through. So guys, I fixed my zip as you can see. So I went ahead to use the facing to sew on top of the zip here. Now what I'll do is to sew on this part close to the zip, close to this stitched part. I'll sew it and I'll stop where this facing stops. I'll do the same thing for this other part. So after doing that, I'll join the front and back shoulder together, making sure the 2 stitch parts aligns. Then I'll sew it by 1/2 inch and I'll show you. So guys, I've joined the front and back together at the both sides. So this is the shoulder. Now the next thing we'll be doing is to fix the pocket. So to achieve that, I'll take another pattern paper and I'll take 7 inches. I'll mark 7 inches like this. Then I'll place my palm on it like so. So make sure you shape it well so that your palm will fit in. So I'll cut it out. So I'll be cutting 4 of this. I cut out 4, 2 for each side. So now to place the pocket, what I'll do is on the dress, from the waist here, I'll mark 3 inches down like this. So I'll place the good side of the pocket on this part I marked. I'll place it here. I'll pin it up. So I'll be sewing it by 1/2 inch. So it will be like this when we sew it. So I'll do the same thing on the back piece here. From the waist, I'll come down by 3 inches. So I'll mark it. Then I'll place the right side of the pocket on the right side of the dress. So I'll place it on this part I marked. Then I'll pin it up and I'll sew it by 1/2 inch here. So we'll have this. Then I'll place the front and back together. So I'll make sure the 2 pockets are equal here. Then from the seam allowance, from the side seam, remember I took 1.5 inches, so I'll sew it by 1.5 inch. When I get here, I'll cross it over and sew it by 1/2 inch, and I'll get to this point and I'll sew it to the end. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the side seam. I'll place the pocket and I'll show you when I'm done. So guys, I've stitched the sides. So this is where I stitched from here to the pocket and to the end. Now on the full length, we are going to fix the plain pattern. The plain pattern is 10 inches. Remember, we minus 10 inches from the full length of the dress. So, and I times it by 2. That is the circumference of the full length. That's the hemline here. I times it by 2 to cut the plain pattern. I also weaved the top and bottom of the plain pattern here, as you can see. So I also joined it so that it will be one piece. So this is where I joined. So what I'll do next is to place it on top of the hemline of the dress. I'll place it on top here by 1/2 inch. Then I'll pleat it here. I'll be pleating it gradually. It's not going to have a lot of pleat because it's not much. So I'll pleat it and I'll pin it up here. So while I sew it, I'll be pleating it. So it will be something like this when I sew it. So I'll sew on top of it. I'll continue to pleat it and I'll show you when I'm done. So I fixed the plain pattern to the dress. As you can see, I pleated it very little because the plain pattern is not that full. So now we'll be fixing the sleeve. So this is a basic sleeve pattern. It's a 3/4 length. I already have a video on how to draft the basic sleeve. You can check it on the description box. So I opened it up and I'll get the center line here like this. Then I'll divide this other part into 2 here. I have about 3.5 inches. I'll also place the 3.5 inches here. Then on the full length, I have about 10 inches here. I'll divide it into 2 and I'll place 5 inches here and also on this side. Now I'll connect it with a straight line. Then I'll cut it out. I'll slash it. So I'll open it wide on the fabric like this. So this is it on the fabric. I opened it by 4 inches. As you can see, I have 4 inches here. I'll open it up here also by 4 inches round. Then I'll cut it out like so. Then I'll make sure this part is flat when I'm cutting it. Then I'll show you when I'm through. So guys, I've gone ahead to cut it. I'll be cutting 2 of this for the 2 sleeves. So what I'll do, I'm going to fold it. Then I'll sew here by 1 inch. Right side facing right side. Then after sewing it, I'll hem the full length like this. I'll fold it and I'll refold it by 1/2 inch all round. I'll show you when I'm done. So guys, I've stitched it by 1 inch and I've also hemmed the full length. So on this part, I left it open a little. That's where I'll be fixing the elastic band. So I'll fix it here. The round sleeve is 10 inches, but I'll cut the elastic band with 7 inches here. Then I'll be using safety pin to tuck it inside the sleeve. So I'll tuck it in like this. Then I'll pull it out from here. I'll sew this part here. After I sew it, then I'll put it in like this. Then I'll sew this part. I'll top stitch this part. Then we'll have something like this. After sewing it, I'll fix the sleeve to the armhole. So I'll tuck it in like this. Good side to the good side, making sure the 2 side seams are aligning. Here, I'll pin it up. Then I'll sew it round by 1/2 inch like this. I'll repeat the same thing on the other sleeve. So guys, we are done. We fixed the 2 sleeves. So this is the elastic band. We're actually done with the dress. We've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, like and share. Thank you.